Hello everyone, and welcome to the tutorial of how to set up and use the Ultimate C++ Enemy Spawner plugin. This plugin is designed to give you a flexible, efficient, and highly scalable enemy spawning system. It supports asynchronous, fully replicated spawning based on player locations, portals, game time, events, and more. It is entirely written in C++. It is highly optimized, and most of the setup is done through DataAssets, so setting it up is quick, clean, and easy to customize. Okay, so now I'm in the almost blank project in Unreal Engine 5.5, and I'm already in the UltimateEnemySpawner content directory. And in here, if we open up Spawner, here we have the enemy spawner component, which is the core of this plugin, and it handles all of the spawning logic. But if you want to use this component, we have to first assign it to the game state. So if you don't know how to create your own game state custom class, you can just right click here, blueprint class, and type here game state. And you will just choose this, select, and it will create your own custom one. As you can see, I already create mine. So if I open it up, here you can see that I already attached the enemy spawner component over here. But if you want to attach it, you would go over here and type enemy spawner component. Also, since we have created our custom game state class, we have to assign it to the game mode. So if you go to edit, project settings, and you type here game mode, you can see that here is the game state class, and we have to choose our newly created custom one. Okay, since we have this set up, let's go back to the enemy spawner component. Okay, so let's open it up. Before I show you how it actually looks, first of all, we need to call the initialize spawner function. It simply just tells the component what data asset should component use. So if we open it up, we can see we got a bunch of options in here. If you want to create your custom data asset, we can see that it's of type enemy spawn data asset. So you would have right click over here, go to miscellaneous, choose data asset, and you will type here enemy spawn data asset, and you will create your own custom one. So here we got enemy configs, box configs, event configs, pattern configs, or endless spawn definitions. If we open the enemy configs, I got some example one already set up. Okay, so enemy class, this is basically the class you want to spawn. Is flying enemy. If you tick this box, then the system will recognize that this one is a flying enemy, which means that when the system spawns this enemy class, it will give it some offset in Z direction, so it's above the ground. Okay, so next, spawn weight is a value that determines how likely an enemy type is to be chosen during a spawn selection between the minimum game progress and maximum game progress. So if we got, let's say, 2 enemy class within the same game progress, if one of the classes has more weight, it will be more likely to choose that class. Okay, then minimum game progress and maximum game progress is the normalized value of the length of the game. The length of the game you can define in the game time manager component, which comes also with this plugin. So for example, if our game has half-hour length, the maximum game progress of 1 will be the value of half an hour. So to understand it a little bit better, if I type here 0.5, then the cube enemy will spawn from the 15th minute of the game until the end of the game. Okay, so here in the editor, we got 4 of our portals set up. So this one over here. So if I play it, we're gonna see the debug spheres on their locations. And from there, the enemy are spawning. I just created a simple AI enemy classes that just follows the character, the gray cube over here. Okay, so we could see that only sphere and cone enemy were spawning. It is because we defined minimal game progress for cube enemy to be 0.5. So if we turn it to 0 back again, and we're gonna play it again, we can see that also cubes are spawning. Okay, let's continue with additional parameters that you can adjust. So if I go back to the enemy spawner component and I click on close default, in here we got parameters to adjust. So the first very important parameter is the spawn type. We got 2 types of spawning. So the first one is portal. That means that the enemies will gonna spawn at the portal locations. And the other option here is outside characters view, which we will talk about later. Another very important parameter is spawn interval, which is set right now to 2 seconds. So simply it means that the system will try to spawn enemies every 2 seconds. However, if we are speaking about intervals, down here also we have the minimum spawn interval and maximum spawn interval. And let's say we want to spawn 10 enemies, but we do not want to spawn them at once, but we want to spawn them in certain interval. And this is the interval that is responsible for it. So as I said, as an example, if we got 10 enemies, the 10 enemies will spawn within this interval. So within the 1.5 seconds. Okay, so let's go back up here. So another parameter is flying enemy Z offset, which is the Z offset for flying enemy. So in the data asset, if we tick the box is flying enemy, as we talked before, it will add the 600 offset in Z direction. Then we got some debug parameters. Another 2 important parameters are game duration and max enemies per spawn. Game duration is total duration of the game in seconds, and max enemies per spawn within this setup is like every 2 seconds, so every spawn interval, the system gonna try to spawn 3 enemies within the minimum and maximum spawn interval. Okay, so just for the example, if I change this value, let's say to 10, so we got max enemies per spawn of value 10, and then we're gonna lower the spawn interval, let's say minimum of 0.1 and maximum 0.5. And we're gonna go back in the editor and press play. Then we can see that the system is trying to spawn 10 enemies within the interval. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about within this enemy spawner component is the spawn type. So for now we were using portal, so let's switch it to outside characters view. And let's turn off debug portal locations and turn on debug player inner and outer circles view. Let's go back in the editor and press play. And now we can see the enemies are spawning outside of the red circle, but inside of the blue circle. If we would have multiple players in a game, all of them has their own inner and outer circle spawn radius, and the system respects all of them. And you can adjust those values in here. So if we want the inner spawn radius to be smaller, let's say 500, and outer spawn radius will be smaller as well, let's say 800. Then it's going to look like this. Okay, the next thing I want to show you are the options you can change in the data asset. So enemy configs, we have already go through that. But then we got boss configs, event configs, and pattern configs. So let's start with the pattern one. So in here, you can define the pattern name, spawn pattern type, how many enemies should be included in the pattern, radius of the pattern, and the enemy class that the system should spawn. So I named this one cone pattern. Okay, for the spawn pattern type, let's choose line for now. Let's put down the radius about 100. Let's save, and every time you want to use any pattern configs, you need to call a function in the enemy spawner component. So if I type here trigger pattern, then you will get this function over here. So the parameters are pattern name and pattern type. So our pattern name is cone pattern. So let me just copy and paste it. Okay, and pattern type is line. Okay, so let me put a little delay over here so we can see it a little better. Let's do 1 second. Okay, now if I press play, the enemies should spawn in a line pattern. Okay, let's switch it to another one. So let's do like spiral, but let's increase the radius maybe to like 600, and let's put like 10 enemies to spawn. So now we have to go back to the enemy spawner component, and in here we haven't changed the pattern name, but we changed its type to spiral. So let's change it over here as well. Let's play. Okay, let me just increase the radius a little bit more, maybe to like 1000. So we can see the spiral pattern more properly. Yeah. Okay, so let's choose the last one, the circle one. And here we can see that enemy spawning circle pattern. Also, we can maybe increase the enemy count to 20. Okay, and I forgot that we have one more over here, which is spawn pattern type random. If you use random, basically what it does is that it tries to spawn enemies at random location. If you plan to use pattern configs, please keep in mind that regardless of the selected spawn pattern type, the system will always attempt to spawn enemies within the range defined by inner spawn radius plus 100. So inner spawn radius we defined over here in the enemy spawner component, and the radius specified in the pattern configuration. Okay, so let's try it out. So let's go back to the enemy spawner component, and let's change the pattern type to random. And now you can see that enemies spawn at the random location outside of the inner spawn radius plus 100, but inside of the radius we specified in the pattern configuration. Okay, that's about patterns. Then we got boss configs and event configs. Within the boss configs, this is like pretty simple setup. You just define the boss class you want to spawn and at which time you want him to spawn. Okay, that's about boss configs. Maybe we can try it out. So if I put here be boss enemy, and if I'm gonna set spawn time to 5 seconds, then the boss enemy should appear. So if I press play, after 5 seconds, the big red boss enemy spawned. Okay, that's about boss configs. The next one is event configs. In here we got enemy class, again, the enemy count of how many enemies do you want to spawn, and the event name. Let me just try to set it up. So if I put here, let's say, cube enemy of count, let's say 15, and event name is gonna be cube event. Then if we want to actually use this event config, we need to again call the function called trigger event. Oh, I'm sorry, trigger event spawn. So let's plug it in. And in here we have to type the event name we have set up in the config. So it's cube event, like this. Let's go back to the editor. And you can see that after 1 second, the cube enemies spawned from the event are chasing the player. Okay, and last but not least is the endless spawn definitions. And in here, you can see that it's like almost the same as the enemy configs. However, this one is for people that want their games to be endless. So it has like some sort of endless mode, so the enemies can spawn even after the game length. Okay, in here we got again enemy class, spawn weight, but what is different is that we have here minimum spawn count and maximum spawn count. So simply the system will try to spawn from 1 to 10 enemies each spawn interval of this class. Oh, and I forgot to mention you how the portals are being defined to the enemy spawner component. So if I minimize this, here you can see the B enemy portal spawner class. And if I open this up, here we got a code that simply it takes the game state class, it's gonna find the enemy spawner component, it's gonna check if the spawner component is using portals, and if yes, it's gonna automatically add the portal. So if you want, you can use this pre-made class. If not, you can create your own class with similar code like this in it. Okay, and that's it for the sake of tutorial. If any of you guys have some additional questions, you can join our Discord server. Thank you guys for your support and see you in the next one.